guys, what's up and welcome back to another video. As for the scent of the day, I'm just about through with this candle, so this is probably the last time you'll see this one, but I have something else really interesting for today. So sometimes I get into these moods where I really want to use my essential oil diffuser. So if you guys remember, just pretty recently I did a Shop Miss A haul, and in the haul I did pick this up, but I didn't show it because it's not makeup related. But this is the Aoa Studio Essential Oil. And these only cost, I think, $1 on there, and I really want to try it to see if it's worth the $1 that I'm paying for it. And this is actually a blend of them, and this is called the Energy Blend. And this is the one I'm diffusing right now, and let me tell you, it smelled so good. I really like this, and I would definitely buy it again. If you're new to my channel, then welcome. I would love if you took a moment and subscribed, and also hit that notification bell so you will never miss anything interesting. And I also do upload every single day on Instagram and Reddit, so if you like content that's updated daily, be sure to go give me a follow. So as per usual, we're gonna do our usual Sunday tutorial and review. And for this week, we're gonna be focusing on the hipdot Zion palette. So here's a look at the color story. I'd definitely say it's more berry toned. And today what we're gonna be creating is called a straight cut crease. So we're gonna do the tutorial with this palette first, and then right after that, I'm gonna jump right into the review. So if you're interested in hanging out with me a little bit extra, then make sure you stick around for that. But without further ado, let's get right into the tutorial. Hey guys, I scooted you closer and now we're gonna get started with the tutorial. But before we get started on the eyeshadow, we gotta do our prep steps. Now I already did my full face of makeup, but I didn't do anything on the eyes, so we're just gonna go ahead and do that together. And the first thing I'm gonna use is an eye primer, but I use this Revlon Candid concealer. This works so well as an eye primer for me, so I'm gonna go ahead and put this on both of my eyes. Now the next step I do for prep is to do my tight line right away. The liner I'm going to use for tight lining is from Me Now Generation 2. And admittedly, these are one of my best purchases I have ever gotten on eBay. So if you're looking for some new liners, these are great. But I'm using the burgundy one, and I'm just going to go ahead and tight line both the upper waterline of my eyes. Okay, so now we're ready to get started on the actual eyeshadow. Now, I know we're not in the review portion of this video yet, but heads up, I had some trouble working with this palette. So some of the techniques that I'm going to use today are a little bit different than my norm. This is the way that I was able to get the palette to work for me. So if you have this palette, you might want to try some of the techniques that I'm using today, and maybe it'll work a lot better for you. Now the first brush I'm going to go into is a very tiny eyeliner brush, because what we're going to do is we're going to create the base shape with this brush, and we're going to blend it in right away. So the first shade I'm going to jump into is called Whisper, and it's kind of like the grayy purple in here. And what I like to do is always start in the middle of my eye, slightly above the crease. And I just put a little line there so you can see it right there. And from this point, it's just easier for me to get my bearing and kind of see where I want to go. So after I get that initial segment on there, I'm trying to make a straight line from this segment to my brow. So I'm just going to continue this line, trying to go in the straightest line possible. So I got that part done. So now we got to work on the inner part of the eye. And I kind of just do maybe a little line right here. Because I know I don't want the shadow to go past that line. And then I'm going to connect both of those lines. And the last step is to bring it down into the inner corner. So now the next brush that I'm taking is just a very small detail brush, kind of like this. And I'll link these down below because these are very beneficial in my eyeshadow game. And I'm going into that same shade once again called Whisper. And now this is how I was easily able to get it to blend. I just took this brush and went on that same line and stayed true to the line and just made up and down motions all across that same line. Now with that same detail brush, I'm going into a shade called Sandstone. And what I'm going to do with this is bring this on top of that shadow, about halfway on my skin and halfway on the shadow, and blend it in up and downwards motions alongside that entire line of shadow that we placed. Now the next shade we're going into is called Vibration, and we're using that same brush still. And we're going to take this shadow and put it on the bottom of this entire shape that we created. So you're just going to lightly feather the shadow all along the bottom of the shape. Now once you're finished with that, take your brush and wipe it off and clean it off however you do that, and just lightly touch it to this gradient and blend all these shadows together. Our next step is to do a cut crease, so I'm going back into my Revlon Candid and I'm taking my favorite cut crease brush. And for this cut crease, you want to literally follow the same line that we created initially. So once you have your shape on there, then you just go ahead and fill it in with that same product that you used to draw it on with. And when I fill in my cut creases, I always just take it all the way out here, because what we're gonna do is we're gonna clean it up at the end to get a nice sharp line. So feel free to just take it all the way out. So our next step is to go into that really tiny liner brush again. And I like to keep a miniature cup of water with me because I dip my brush in the water and then I go into the shade called Virgin. And this really amplifies it. And I'm taking the shade and I'm going to apply it on the seam of my cut crease. Now, in my experience, this always works the best if you go in and let that dry and then go in with a second coat. I find it really makes it pop more. The next shade we're going to go into is called Angel's Landing, and you could use this wet or dry, it doesn't matter. The shade is just gorgeous. And what we're going to do is we're going to line our top lash line with this, but I'm going to come up about halfway on the lid. Maybe a third of the way on the lid. And I'm gonna line probably 3/4 of my top lash line. To finish up this lash line, we're gonna jump into a shade called Surreal. And I'm gonna blend this into where I stopped with that copper color. And when I reach this outer corner, I'm going to wing this straight up to the top part of the eyeshadow. And then now with that same little teeny liner brush, I'm going into a shade called Wild River. And I'm going to fill in all of the negative space with this. So that just means everywhere that you can see your eye primer, fill it in with the shade. Alright, so at this point you should have a ton of fallout on your face, and we're going to go ahead and clean this look up. So grab some micellar water, a Q-tip, a makeup wipe, whatever you have, and just clean up around the look. And this is when I like to sharpen my edges up. Now for the waterline, I'm going in with that same burgundy eyeliner. And I'm going to take my little tiny eyeliner brush and go into the shade called Vibration and put this on the outer half of my lower lash line. And then same brush, I'm going to go into that first shade we started with called Whisper, and I'm going to put this on the inside of my lower lash line. Now for the inner corner, just go in with your favorite inner corner brush, and I'm going in to Wild River, and I'm just going to put this on the inner corner to brighten that up a little bit. Now I'm going to throw on some mascara and I'll be right back. Alright guys, so here's the look, and for my mascara I went in with this Maybelline Snapscara in a purple color, and it is called Ultraviolet. But I just figured it kind of went with this whole vibe of this look, so good time to use it. Now this look looks really good if you put lashes on, so if you want to see what it looks like with the lashes, I'll be sure to link my Saturday pictorial down below. It's a step-by-step tutorial, so just click on that link and then you can see what it looks like with lashes on. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go take a little break, and then I'll be back and we'll get into part 2. Alright guys, here's the palette that we've been working with today. This is from Hipdot and it's called the Zion palette. Now the packaging of Hipdot's palettes have never really fascinated me. They're just simple cardboard packaging. And on the inside you get a nice mid-sized mirror. And again, here's that color story. You're getting 15 different shades in here, each weighing in at 1.8 grams. Now there are only 2 different types of formulas in this palette. You get 11 mattes and 4 shimmers. Now in the past, I've never had a problem with a Hipdot palette before. I've actually really looked forward to using them because I find them very easy to work with. But this palette was different. The mattes in here were very different. This particular matte formula in this palette, I had very much trouble blending and layering. Trying to create my look yesterday, I had to wipe it off twice because I could not get it to work for me. The matte shadows in here are extremely pigmented. So that means when you go to place it onto your eye, you have to be very careful where you put it, because since it's so pigmented, every little mistake is going to be shown. Now as far as the metallic formula in here, there's only 4 of them, so it's not really a good formula balance because there's way more mattes than there are metallics. But I do like the fact that each metallic in here does serve a purpose. Each one is vastly different from one another, so you can create a lot of different looks with them. The metallics in here work perfectly well with a dry brush, but I find if you wet them, they're even more metallic and they look like liquid shadows. Now I'm going to go ahead and pop up some swatches of this palette so you can see how every shade looks swatched out. Alright, now we're going to spit straight facts about this palette. So one thing I do like about Hipdot is they have a purpose behind every single creation. For instance, this palette was inspired by the majestic beauty of the natural Utah canyons. And each palette in their line has an inspirational background just like that. This palette has a clean formula, is cruelty-free, and it's PETA certified vegan. And now we're getting into my favorite part of the video, which is the cost. So if you guys wanted to go out and buy this palette as it is today, it would cost you $13. And yes, it's currently on sale. Breaking that down a little bit, it comes to 87 cents per shade. And breaking that down a bit further, it comes to 48 cents per gram. So comparing this palette to similar ones on the market, this is very inexpensive. And now for the last portion of the review, we're going to talk about my recommendation. So as far as my first review of this palette, I did not get any patching and I did not get any creasing with this formula. I'm still going to do 2 follow-up reviews on this, so we'll see how it wears for those reviews, but as far as this first one goes, I still stand behind that. This is a very softly pressed formula, so I did get a lot of kickback in the pan and some slight fallout on my face, so I definitely recommend doing your eyes before your base with this one. And I know this palette has a lot going for it. It's a beautiful color story, it's on sale, the metallics are just gorgeous, but I honestly can't recommend this. And there are 3 reasons why. The first reason being there's an unbalanced ratio of formulas in here. You're getting way too many mattes in comparison to the non-mattes. I like a palette that offers more of a balance in that department. The second reason is that most of these mattes in here are very difficult to blend. And when I mean difficult to blend, I mean getting incredibly harsh lines that would not go away. And my third reason is that these shadows in here are so extremely pigmented that every single minor error on your eye will be noticed. So you have to be very strategic in your initial placement, or you're going to have to end up wiping off your entire look. So guys, that's all I have for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it and found it helpful. And if you did, please give me a giant thumbs up. And if you didn't like it, hit the thumbs down button. And until next time,